A lot of fun. Not Mr. Here yet.
That is so great. Well, Mike, I want to let you get started, so that way when you finish up early, you can get going, everyone else can get on too. Once again, thank you so much for being here with us. Obviously, having Mike Perna in such a small group, please take advantage of it. This is number 6 in the country that's willing to spend some time with us to take your business to that next level. All right, and then I'll see you after class.
Okay.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Mike.
You betcha. All right, guys, let's start on page 6. We're going to learn about Joshua Stern, I think his name is. Yep. All right, so I've got 3 paragraphs on Joshua Stern. He said he started farming and he made a lot of money. Page 7, now page 8, page 9, page 10, holy heck, page 9. All right, what is farming? That's a good page. Oh, page 11, page 10 is good too. And we'll do both together. Okay, does everybody know what farming is, essentially?
Yes.
Okay, what you got? What questions you got right now?
What questions? So
Yeah.
basically, like, if you were to farm, how big of an area should you choose?
That is a good question. All right, so farming in its most pure form is simply geographically going after the same people over and over and over and over, gaining mind share until they want to sell, right? That's it. In its most pure form, it's simply geographic, usually by subdivision, sometimes by city, but usually by subdivision, with no regard to any of the demographic types such as age, length of time at the home, anything like that. You're just bombarding the same homes over and over and over. Nowadays, there's a zillion different variations of that, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. But there's 2 schools of thought with farming. One is to go wide, and one is to go deep, right? Going deep costs more as far as money and time. Going wide costs less, so put $1 sign. And usually there's less time involvement, but you've got to hit many, 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 many more homes to get any sort of result. So many more homes. And typically the results, if you're doing it right, of each, this equals somewhere between a 5 and 15% market share. And this is anywhere between 30 and 70% market share. There's no wrong answer. There's no wrong answer, okay? I chose this method, the wide method versus the deep method, but I will probably do that at some point in time in specific neighborhoods. Just from a time perspective, I didn't have the time to do all the actions necessary to truly dominate a neighborhood. And we'll talk about 2 different agents. We'll talk about myself and another farmer that's in this office, who I know very well, and she's like a second mom to me. And she goes deep to the point where she's been running a consistent 80 to 90% in her chosen farm. So if there are 10 sales that happen within that farm, she generally has 8 or 9 of them, which is huge, which is pretty big, right? So when you go with this method, you need a ton more homes. When you go with this method, you need a ton fewer homes. I generally advise people to not start with any less than 800 homes. And only what you can commit to for at least 6 months within your budget, without any expectation of return. Now, this is a long form method. Of the 3 methods of getting business, prospecting, marketing, and sphere of influence, all of which kind of work together a little bit, this one can gain the most consistency. It can be the most fruitful. It can be the most profitable because you're taking away your time, but you're putting dollars in place of it. You know, through the postcards and the mailers and all that good stuff. But the problem is it takes a long time to build up that mind share, right? Most major farmers will tell you that it takes about 12 months, between 10 and 12 months to break even on what you put into it, what you invested, right? It takes about 18 months to get enough market share to really make a ton of cash, right? So if you're doing 1,000 homes and it costs you 50 cents per piece of mail to send out and you're sending out 12 of them, 1,000 homes at 50 cents each, that's $500. You gotta have $6,000 ready to commit with no expectation of return. But if you hold out and if you pick the right farm, it can be extremely fruitful. And there are a couple ways that you can go about speeding that process up, getting it closer to 6 months for return on investment versus 12 months, right? 12 months is more of just a pure, I'm just gonna send some mailers out method. Going deeper into a specific neighborhood, you can get that return a lot faster. And then you could also compound that return once you have the first home, okay? So, when you're choosing a farm, now this is extremely important. When you're choosing a farm, you wanna look at a neighborhood or an area with no less than a 5% turnover rate. Period. No exceptions. 7% is preferable. Choosing a farm. 5% min, 7% preferable. Plus, right? Because at the end of the day, you're gonna get a certain percentage of the business. This is a better percentage to have than this, right? There are more units to get, more units to attain. So if you choose a farm, like right now, most of the neighborhoods in Northville are turning over at a 3 to 4% rate, which is why I don't go too heavy into Northville or Novi for that matter. I pick Farm Sales in Livonia because it's a much higher turnover rate right now. Let's say you pick a farm of 1,000 homes. At a 3% turnover rate, that's only 30 people that will sell in that year. That's it, right? And if I want to realistically try to achieve 25%, that means that I'll have 7.5 sales. If I pick a good farm with 7% turnover rate, that's 70 people that will sell that year, right? And that gives me 17.5 sales, right? I think a lot of people go after the higher dollar and ignore how many homes are actually selling and how many sales are actually available to have as an agent, right? You know, what's a good example of that? Crestwood Manor in Northville, great example. There are about 250 homes in there. It looks nice and shiny because sales prices are anywhere between 500 and I think the high sales price in the past year and a half has been like 685. So it looks awesome, but over the last 18 months, there have only been about 6 sales. That's it. So you can beat your head against the wall trying to get into that thing and gain only 2 or 3 real sales opportunities, period. In the meantime, you can also shift over, let's call it into Farmington Hills. Right over here, go with Farmington Square, which has about 350 homes. And last year, they had an 8% turnover rate, which means that there were 24 sales opportunities. And if you get 25% of those, that ends up being 4.8 plus 1.2. So it's 6 opportunities versus 2 in Crestwood, right? And Farmington Square right now is selling anywhere between, let's call it 3 and 350. That's solid. Plus between 3 and 350, the turnover is going to be much quicker. It's going to be an easier sale to be had. There's going to be a lot lower agent competition. You can stick to your guns much easier on commission, the whole nine. Everything in life gets easier when you shift down below 400,000. That's one thing that we've noticed. Does that make sense?
Find what the turnover rate is.
Yep, with the turnover rate, actually use Rocon. Yep. So pull up that neighborhood. If you go under the detailed search, you can click on the word subdivision and then just start typing in the subdivision name. A lot of subdivisions will have several phases to them. So take all the phases because they're all the same subdivision. Like Farmington Hills Hunt Club over at Lebanon Halstead has 7 phases, right?
Okay.
So there was like a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5, phase 7, because they built it over 5 years. And then each time they got done with the block, they opened up another set of streets, right? Northville Hills in Northville, it's like 780 homes, and it's like 18 phases or something ridiculous like that. Because they just kept building a little at a time until they got through the whole time, right? It's just the way the builders do it, so they're not scattered all throughout the community. They make it look like there's less inventory than there really is. Island Lake, they did that. Actually, they're still doing that right now. I think they're on phase like 22 or 23 at this point, right? But by making it look like there's only one street of homes available to buy on, you know, supply and demand. You know, they tell people, yeah, there will be 70 homes available here, but really you only get to pick from these 13 lots. If you want to be in within 6 or 8 months. You know, so it's more of a marketing ploy and not spreading the resources too thin and not going in and paving roads and doing water and sewer into areas that they're not seeing any revenue from at this moment. Right? So you go into real comp, usually what I do is I go 24 months back on whatever is sold in that neighborhood. So I go basically, instead of minus 365, I just double the number, minus 700, or 730 is what the number would be. So minus 730, I pull up the neighborhood with all the phases, and then that will tell me how many sales there are. I take a quick look at the sales, take out any bank owns, because those aren't real sales, those are fake sales. You know, bank owns are not something where the homeowner actively raised their hand and said, I want to sell this home. It's an outside influence that caused that home to sell. And unless you're an agent with that bank, no amount of mailing is going to cause you to get that listing. Right? Okay. So then from there, I look at the reason why I go back 24 months is because I want to make sure I'm not seeing some sort of a flub in the numbers, because every once in a while something will shift in a neighborhood. You know, a large assessment will come down. You know, a large percent of the population will have kids that graduate from high school in one single year. You know, that happened in Farmington Hills Hunt Club, where all the original owners that had built in 83 and 84 and 85 that were still there, I mean, literally, I think there were, because I was one of those kids, I think there were like 14 or 15 kids that graduated the same year, and literally 6 months later, like nine of those people put their homes on the market. You know, that's a fluke. That's not going to happen every single year. So I want to go with the 2-year trend just to see what actually is really going on there, right? And then I take that sales number, I divide it by 2 to go with the 1 year, right? So if there are 24 sales over 2 years, that would give you 12 sales over 1 year that you can reasonably expect every year, year in, year out. And then take that number and then divide it by the total number of homes available. So if it's 250 homes, if it's 12 and a half sales, if there are 25 sales, just to make the math easy, if it's 12 and a half sales, that'd be a 5% turnover rate on the dot. Just doing math in my head. Yeah, because 10% of 250 would be 25, 12 and a half would be 5, right? If I'm looking, and I mean, if it's a neighborhood I really like, I'll go back a little further just to see if maybe there was like a low side fluke. But as an example, you know, take Farmington Hills Hunt Club, that's where I grew up as a kid. I avoided that neighborhood like the plague for like 5 years running. Because even though I had an emotional bond to that neighborhood and with a lot of the owners that were still in there, that were original owners, it only had a 2 to 3% turnover rate. There was no money. There was no money to be made. You know, divorce yourself from any emotions of a neighborhood. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. This is about building a business and making money. You know, not about getting a brand name with people that you used to know. Right? Yeah. That basically, you know, it gives you 2 choices, and it's pretty, in my mind, it's a pretty easy choice. You know, you can build a brand name with people that you used to know, or you can feed your kids. Given those 2 options, which one do you choose? Feed your kids. You'd be amazed how many people choose the opposite, but they also don't recognize what choice that they're making. You know, when you say yes to something, you're saying no to a zillion other things. When you say no to something, that gives you the opportunity to say yes to something else. Right? And that's straight out of the one thing, which is true. You know, by saying yes to being here and teaching, I'm saying no to going home and getting my Apple Watch, which is now sitting on my front porch, which I just got the notification that was dropped off. Like 5 minutes before, I was like, can we delay this class like an hour just because I want to play with a new toy? But I said, no, I cannot play with my new toy. Because I said yes to this class, as an example. Now, second thing, and now we get a list of, let's call it, whatever it is that you want to go after, do like 2.5 times that number of homes. So if you're looking for 1,000, do the research on like 2,500 homes. Not $2,500, 2,500 homes. Right? 2, go back through those sales and start counting up any realtors that had more than 1 sale. Okay, over the last 2 years. Any neighborhood that has a realtor with 25% plus sales, get rid of it. Get rid of it. Doesn't matter if it's a good realtor or a bad realtor, just get rid of it. You know, so if there are 30 sales over 2 years in a neighborhood and one guy or one gal has 9 of them, don't even bother. That's why I want to do 2,500 homes now, so I'm not going back and redoing the numbers later. I'm just going to pick out this many homes today. And I know that at least half of those are going to go away. Right? I do not want to compete against somebody else that has been entrenched in the neighborhood for 10 years. I don't. Right? Mindshare with anything. How many dentists right now, if I say dentist, how many dentists come to mind? How many dentists could you name right now?
3.
That's more than most. Most people say 1. All right. How many attorneys could you name right now?
None.
Yeah, even with like all the Sam Bernsteins and all the, Jeffrey Flagers and all the radio advertising, still can't even name 1 attorney. And that's Mindshare. Mindshare is very limited, right? Mindshare does usually work in rules of 3, but it works at rules of 3 on things that you see every day. So 3 newspapers, 3 websites that you get your news from, 3 places to go look for this. You know, when people look on travel websites, they look on 3 of those, whatever it is, right? When it comes to the smaller professions, like accountants or real estate agents, usually there's only room for 1 person in the mind, right? 88% of people can usually name 1 person of a profession, right? 9% of people can name 2 people within a profession. And 3% of people can name 3 or more. That's it. So if you're going into this neighborhood, you're only competing for the space of 12% of the population versus 100. That has nobody in it yet. Right? So if you're going up against somebody else, you're going to do about the same number of mailers and the same number of marketing. You're trying to gain the mind share. If there are, let's say, 25% of the available sales, let's say there are 30, so there are 9 available sales for a realtor that's farming. And that's a low side number, but it's always what I use because that's what I want to base all my profit and loss statements off of is a 25% conversion rate to me. It can be as high as 80 to 90. We'll talk about how to get to those levels in a minute. But 25% is about the right number on average. So there are 9 possible sales. If I'm only going over after 12% of them because somebody else is already there, that means I've got 1 sales opportunity and I got to fight to get it. Because chances are they'll call both of us and have us both out. Right? So I'm going to spend $6,000 over the course of a year to get 1 potential sale at $300,000, with which I may or may not get because they may like him better. In which case I'm zeroed out and I make nothing. At $6,000, I'm literally spending 66% on marketing, which is ridiculous. Yeah, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, page 157, shows that we should spend no more than 10% on marketing. Right? So 66%, it does not make sense. To beat this guy, you're going to have to outspend him 3-1, which sucks, to gain that mind share. And the other reason why I use the 25% number is because about half the people in a neighborhood know somebody who's a realtor or they're in contact with their old realtor, right? There are realtors out there that do actually do a good job following up with their past clients. There's not a lot of them, but there are enough of them. So they're going to knock off 20% of the sales in a neighborhood no matter what. Yeah, and that happens with the neighbors that I farm, where a home goes up, is nobody I've ever seen before, and then when I look back in time, I see that that guy actually sold the home 6 years ago. Oh, that makes sense. He actually did his job and stayed. He can stay in contact with them. He's got nothing else to do but call those more people over and over and over, right? I'm not trying to be negative to anybody, but that's how it is. Same thing on the other side, 30% of them will know somebody in real estate. They'll have family, they'll have friends, they'll have somebody at work that's a part-timer, something where they know somebody. Or they'll go for like a personal referral from another family member that just sold a home, something like that. So that really leaves me only 50% of any community's transactions to have, unless you're like the superstar agent. We'll talk about superstar status in a minute. Of that, I always cut in half what my top end projection could be, which gives me the 25%. And that's where I come up with that number, right? Knowing full well when I go to a neighborhood, 50% of these guys I'm never going to have the opportunity to even interview with. I can send them a piece of mail every single day forever. I can call them every single day forever. They will still list with somebody else because they already know them and have a relationship with that person. Does that make sense? And that'll happen. The third thing that I look at is I do look at sales price. Because it's gotta be worthwhile. It really does. You know, and I'm trying to think of a good example of where I would not go right now. Which as sales prices are going up, is becoming less and less areas. But let's take the Shacktown in Westland. Okay? Right now, the average sales prices there are still around 50 to 65,000, right? So if you can get 10 sales over the course of a year, two things about those. Now we're only talking about 500,000 of potential closed gross volume. 500,000 of gross closed volume is only about 15,000 bucks. 15,000 bucks is a lot of money, but when you're spending 6 to get it, you're still way above that 10% mark. You're actually running about 4 times that. You're running 40% to get that 15%. Does that make sense? Yeah. Now, the far side of that is also true, where once you go too far below about 160, the deals get harder. Because now you're running into a lot more FHA, you're running into a lot more VA, you're running into a lot more, the buyers are broke and the sellers are broke. Something goes wrong on an inspection on a $400,000 house, what happens? At times, the buyer and seller are actually tripping over each other to fix the same problem because they don't want to offend the other person and get booted from the transaction. Seller doesn't want to lose the buyer doesn't want to lose that seller. At $130,000, a lot of these guys don't have the money. They just don't. You know, FHA inspection report comes in, they say you need to replace 2 slabs of concrete at a cost of $3,000. Buyer says, I have no money for this. Seller says, I have no money for this because we're already going into our pocket $1,000 just to sell the darn house. There's no money, right? That's one problem with the below 160 crowd. One thing that we've tried to do on our team this year, well, over the last 2 years, is consistently raise our sales price until it was over 160. Right now, we're averaging about 190 on a purchase. And the reason is simply that, like when we were below 160, like for a while there we were averaging 125, like the other major teams in the area, but we were seeing about a 22% fallout rate on our accepted offers. That's a high number. 1 in 5 of our deals that we had an accepted offer on would not get to a closing table. The appraisal would come in low, no money. Inspection issue would happen, no money. Guy ran up an extra $500 on the credit card. You know, and that extra $6 payment per month threw his debt to income ratios out and done. And that would happen. All that stuff would happen. You know, a guy would go late on a DTE bill by 3 days. Boom, done, knocked out of the road. Right? Once we hit about 180, our average fallout rate dropped, and now we're running about 9%. Right? It's still 1 in 10, and it's, you know, it is what it is. I mean, life is going to happen. But at least 1 out of 10 buyers, we don't have to get back on the road and show them different houses and go sell that same buyer again. We can move on to the next buyer instead, right? And the same thing here. You know, I always like to tell people, try to stay at, around, or above 200,000 when you're farming. And that 200 to 350, I personally love. Because all the agents want the shiny North Hill Hills houses that sell at 700,000. All the agents want the shiny Stonewater Hills that sell at 850. Everybody wants to be that big agent. But let's be honest here. I will take 4 of these transactions at 200,000 over an 800. Because if something goes wrong on one of my 200s, I got 3 left. I'm cool. If something goes wrong on my 1-800, I'm out. I'm done. That was all my monies for the month. Gone. Right? Now, I can take a 25% hit and survive. I cannot take a 100% hit at 800,000 and survive. Right? Second reason why I go after this is because the closer to 200,000 you get, the lower level of competition you have. You know, Farmington Hills and Livonia are receiving very, very few mailers right now. You know, Southern Canton, which we just started farming. You know, Southern Canton, which has a really great sales price range of anywhere between 180 and 420. Again, not very many mailers are going out right now. Not very many agents are competing. You get into downtown Plymouth, everybody and their brother is door knocking and competing in open housing and trying to get every last sale they can. You know, we went on an appointment, we got one on Penniman And I literally got 3 phone calls from different downtown Plymouth agents. How did you get that one? And we did. And it was a personal referral, that's what it was. But if you look at some of those areas, they are so inundated, like these 3 realtors have a lock on this area. The amount of money that would have to be spent to break one of those agents off, why bother? It's just not worth the time and trouble. Especially because usually you can go 3 or 4 miles down the road and all the competition goes away. You know what I mean? Yeah. Take an area like a Royal Oak right now. Royal Oak forever was a non-farm city because the average sales price in Royal Oak for a long time was hovering around 170. Now that the average sales price is back up around 230, some agents are starting to dig into it, but if you actually look at the sales for all of Royal Oak, there is no clear winner. Even if you break off mile by mile, there's still no clear winner because nobody with strength went into that thing 3 years ago and said, I'm going to farm this 1 mile. Now there are a couple agents that are trying to, and it'll take a year for them to get there. But, at 170, nobody wanted it. You gotta do a lot of deals at 170 to make this thing work, and with an average turnover rate of Royal Oak of 5.1, 5.2%, at 170 it wasn't worth it. If the average sales price was 230, 60 grand more per sale, that's an extra $1,800 in commission. If you're doing 10 deals, that extra $1,800 per commission is $18,000. Now it's worth it. Does that make sense? So you gotta pay attention to those sales prices as well, right? As an example, I have a particular affinity for both Castle Gardens in Livonia and a particular affinity for Rosedale Gardens in Livonia, both of which I've avoided because their sales prices are pretty far below 200. Not that we don't sell there. I mean, absolutely, we will take a referral, we'll take someone that calls off a different sign somewhere else, but I'm not gonna actively put dollars into the area when I can take those dollars and put them into an area that's selling 60 grand higher. Given the 2 options. And I'm always given the 2 options because there's always another neighborhood that does not have an agent in it, okay? So these are the 3 things I look for when I'm trying to determine the farm. I want to know how many homes are selling. What opportunity do I have versus another agent? And where are my sales prices going to be? Because I want to know how much I'm going to make. Right? So at 200,000 potential income. At 200,000, if you go into farm areas of about 1,000 homes, at, let's call it 6%, that gives you 60 opportunities, of which you'll probably end up with about 25%, which is 15 sales. That's $3 million in sales, which is about 90,000 in gross commission. Right? If you're spending $6,000 to get there, yeah, about what, 6.5%? Yeah, because 6% of 100,000 is 6 grand commission. So a little over the 5 mark. So yeah, about 6.5%, 7%. Now between 6 and 7% is an acceptable number to spend. I will spend $6 to get $100 every day of the week. I'm good with that. If anyone wants to make the trade, I can. That's the power behind farming. And the best part is, you are not doing the expired calling. You're not doing the, going up for sale by owners, doing all that crap door knocking. You're not going up against people that are inundated with real estate agents that you got to do battle with. These are the guys that pick up the phone and then call you. Right? That's the beauty behind the farm. That make sense? Yeah. All right, now, so this is how we're going to choose our farm. And then we got to determine whether we're going to go wide or whether we're going to go deep. Now, on our team, we go wide. Okay? What does that mean to me? What does it mean to everybody, right? That means I'm going to change the way that I mail, the type of, the program I use, the number of homes, and the message is going to be different, right? I'm going to do the same thing for going deep, okay? So, the mailing program. If I'm going to go deep into a neighborhood, I want my mailers to go specifically to that neighborhood and no one else, right? So I'm going to use bulk mail. Bulk mail right now runs around 24 cents for postage per piece of mail, okay? By going wide, by using more of a shotgun effect, you can use EDDM which runs about 17.2 cents. 7 cents doesn't sound like a lot of money, but over 1,000 postcards, that's $70.
What does EDDM stand
That is every door direct mail. That's a great question. Every door direct mail is a program that the post office came out with about 3 years ago to get small businesses like ourselves to mail at a much more affordable rate and a much easier rate, right? Because part of the problem with the post office was that it was getting too expensive, and part of the problem was it was getting too cumbersome to use. Yeah. Does anybody have any idea? I looked this up before I got here. Does anybody have any idea how many different postage rates there are right now?
Oh, it's like 17 of them. Or, well, are you just speaking of a stamp?
Or types of stamps, or different, well, in a lot
Not
of
like
them,
express mail and overnight.
there are 63 different rates right now. If you include all the nonprofits in there, because nonprofits have their own set of 10 rates as well. Yeah, because they get further discounts than anybody else does. So there's a stamp. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there's a stamp, so that's what, about 50 cents right now, right? Give or take a little bit. Yeah, 49 cents, 48 cents, whatever it is
Yeah.
today. Which, thank God, there's a freeze on that, because it was going to go up again this year, but Congress froze rates for the next 2 years, which is cool. But there's a stamp. There's first class pre-sorted, right? If you're sending over 100 pieces of mail, right, and they're the same piece of mail, doesn't have to be the same zip code, but same piece of mail, that gets you down to 36 cents, right? There's first class, no, there's another first class, which gets you down to 32 cents. Then there's your bulk rate, which is your standard pre-sorted without barcode, and that's 28 or 29 cents. And you need 250 pieces per zip code for that one. Then there's your standard pre-sorted with barcode in the tubs. That's CAS certified. That gets you down between 23 and 26 cents, depending on how good your list is, and if the barcodes are actually working properly. Then you have basically the same run of and I'm missing 3 or 4 of those. They're in between there. You've got the same run of those for nonprofits, but they all shift down about 20% in cost. So that's 12 or 13, 14, 15 right there. You know what I mean? And then you have your oversized envelopes. Like if you want to send just a flat envelope that's about the size of a piece of paper, it's the same thing, but it all shifts up between 10 and 20% depending on the weight. And it's also depending on the weight. So if you're sending like a calendar magnet with a letter and it goes over 3 ounces, now everything shifts up another 15 cents. I mean, seriously, there is a ridiculous number of different rates out there. And then beyond that, you have to go into CAS certification and things like that, which a good mail house will do for you. But CAS certification is essentially taking your list and scrubbing it through CAS certification software. The software itself has a cost, of course. It's about $180 a year for the software. Most vendors will charge. And then they literally scrub out, if there are any holes in the addresses, like if there's partial names or first initials, they fill it all in. So they get a perfect address, or as close to perfect as possible. The more perfect the address, the more perfect the list, the lower the postage. Right? They add the barcode to everything, to each person. So when you print out the envelope, or you print out the stickies, the labels, or if you print right on postcards, they'll barcode it as well. You know, barcoding is faster, and the more labor you take away from the post office, the more of a discount they give you, essentially, right? CAS certifying something, your CAS certification software has to be updated minimum once every 90 days. It's a pain in the butt to run. It is. We have it at this office. We've had it since I got here 10 years ago. I've used it one time. I never want to go through that again. It sucked. I'd rather just put a regular stamp on and literally pay twice as much for the time, energy, and effort in CAS certifying. I thought I was saving all this money by doing it myself. No, it's garbage. It sucks. Pay a mail house 5 or 6 cents each. They will do it for you. And yes, it sucks because you're splitting it with them, but you're still getting a deep discount down to 30 cents from 49 or 50, what a stamp would be. So EDDM, the idea behind this was, the guy that owns the Little Caesars up the road, he's flipping pizzas and he owns 1 or 2 or 3 Little Caesars. If he's not at that store, he's at another store. If he's not the guy opening the store, he's the guy closing the store because he opened a different one. You know, the guy that owns our local Jimmy John's here on Grand River Road, there are 6 people in that family. All 6 of them are at their stores 12 hours a day, at one store or another. right? They don't have the time, the energy, or the effort to do CAS certification, to make sure all the addresses are in perfect order, to get them in the right bins, get them to the right post office. Take it to the wrong post office, you know, you're out the door. Yeah, they don't have that kind of time, right? So EDDM said, okay, here's the deal. You pick what mail carrier route you want, and we'll give you an interactive map to do it. So you can literally hover your mouse over the streets and it will glow with the map. And if you're a mail carrier and you are this is your route, and you have 600 homes on your route you hit every day, you have to hit every single home on that route, bar none. And unlike every other piece of mail out there, it does not matter which one they get, just as long as they get one. So it's not going to be the Jones family on the envelope, so they get that envelope, or the Jones family on the postcard, so they get that postcard. It's not going to have an address on it whatsoever. There's no addressing. So the guy's got that stack of them, you know, in stacks of 50, bundled in stacks of 50, on his seat next to him. And literally, like, just every time he hits a door, he just grabs one, puts it in with the rest of the mail. It is as easy as it can get for the postal carrier, and they pass all that savings of non-barcoding, not having to run it through machines or anything onto us, the small business owner, right? Yep, in a digital age, this is how they're trying to be much more competitive with the Googles and the Yahoos and the Bings and the what have you, right? And at 17.2 cents, at a potential savings of about 7 cents a piece, like for example, I'm doing about 40,000 houses right now. You know, 1,000 houses is 70 bucks. 10,000 is 700. That's 2,800 bucks for 40,000 houses every single month. That's a $34,000, $33,000 savings for me per year. Now, how many more pieces of mail I can send? It's a heck of a lot of mail I can send for $30,000, right? And that's where the EDDM theory comes from, right? Because of this, you can also send to more homes, because each home is costing less, right? You're essentially knocking 20 to 25% off your cost, okay? Because even beyond this, you have to go and get the postcard printed, designed and printed, which is usually between 9 and 10 cents per piece, if you're going with a good vendor, right? And shop that around. There are a lot of vendors out there that suck. I mean, there's like Quantum Mail, which is well known within the real estate community. There's, what else is there? There's like Vista Print, Postcard Mania, all these other places that charge 14, 15 cents a card. If you go to a place like a gotprint.com, they'll get you down below 10 cents. They're good. I use a guy local, just because I always like to support local vendors. You know, I think gotprint.com is, for the amount of cards I run, it's like 7.8 cents each. But I go with a guy local, and he charges me 7.9 cents. And I'm okay with the extra $80 a month spent, because I'm supporting a local vendor. You know, and that money stays here in Metro Detroit, and that stays with the family. Which actually worked to my advantage, because last year that cost me about $960 extra, and he referred me a person with a $500,000 house. So that was $15,000 in revenue from that referral from my mailing guy, which means I can go 15 years and still not hit the extra cost of Gotprint, or the lower cost of Gotprint. That's pretty solid. That's pretty solid. I always like going local as I can, right? The printer's in Michigan, the mail house is in Michigan, everything. That's what I do. His name is Dave Street with Metro Detroit Printing. If you Google it, it's on the website. Tell him I said hi. He's a great guy. But it lets you increase the number of homes by 20 to 25% for the same cost, right? Now the message. The problem with EDDM also is that you're never going to hit a neighborhood dead on, right? It's just not going to happen. Because, like, take Farmers Hills Hunt Club, for example. Last time I checked, there were 2 mail carriers. Half of them did that one, and then half of them did the condos across the street, across Halstead. And then the other guy did the other half of the neighborhood, but also did half of Independence Commons as well. So the message you would usually want to go with is as hyper-local as possible. I'll talk about that. But when you go EDDM, you got to go a little wider. because half your mail isn't gonna go to the homes of that neighborhood. They're gonna go to that condo complex or that neighborhood next door. Which for me is fine, because my message is generic. You know, mine is, I always do a just sold postcard, right? And I put my stats on there. You know, we sold 500 some odd homes last year. You know, my homes sell for 3% more, my homes sell for this, my homes sell for that. So I can get away with a little more of a generic message, which is cool, right? One thing I've done, and I've learned this through trial and error, is that the fewer number of homes I put on a just sold postcard, the better it seems to work for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know why. But I did 2 different test runs where I tested them for 3 months each, where half of Farmington Hills I sent, and I just randomized it, half of Farmington Hills I sent postcards with every sale that we did that month, which in those months was like 25 or 30 sales, and half of them I sent postcards with either 1 or 2 homes, and that's it. The ones with 1 or 2 homes, I was getting double the number of calls on. The ones where I was putting 25 or 30 homes, I was getting very few calls on. And I think what happened was, psychologically people were thinking they were just a number. They weren't real people to us. You know, this was a machine and we were just feeding the machine. You know, the personal relationships of buying and selling homes, I was throwing out the window. That's my guess. I don't know what the real reason is why people looked at one postcard and called me, or looked at basically the same postcard but with more homes on it and didn't call me. I don't know why. The backs were exactly the same. The rest of the verbiage was exactly the same. No other change but more homes versus less homes, right? I would figure that, hey, if I get a postcard from a guy that says I sold the 1 home, or I get another postcard from a different guy that says I sold these 30 homes last month, I call the guy that sold 30 because he knows the market. That's what I would do. But apparently, everyone else doesn't do that, and that's okay. I'm not mailing myself. I am actually mailing myself, but I'm not mailing myself to call myself. I'm mailing everybody else to call me, right? So whatever it is that they want is what I'm going to give them. So the message on more of a generic EDDM postcard, the best message is a just sold. Now we're still too close to the down market, where the just listed postcards are not working as well. Now back in the good old days, you can send out a just listed or a just sold, just as long as you showed some sort of evidence of success. Somebody chose me, just listed. I sold a home, just sold. It didn't matter, as long as you were active in the community, you got more business, right? And then when the down market hit, you know, after a while, the public kind of became aware of, you know, it didn't really matter if the guy just listed something. Did he sell it? Because 7 out of 10 homes were not selling. Who cares if this guy listed 5 properties? Did he actually get the job done? Did the families get moved? Did he negotiate a good price? Those were the things that became important during the down market. Yeah.
What if you haven't sold or listed a house in that neighborhood?
Doesn't matter. Most people don't even know the streets in their own neighborhood. That's a fantastic question. And I want to go deeper into that. I want to go even deeper into that. So, I will go even deeper into that. All right. I want to asterisk. No sales in. But, okay. I just want to remind myself to get into that because that's a great question. Yeah, like what we're sending out to the entire city of Farmington Hills is just a just sold with 1 home on it. You know, there are about 70 neighborhoods in Farmington Hills, 69 of them that house is not in. They don't care. They still pick up the phone and call. You know, but part of it is I've been selling so much in Farmington Hills that they also see the signs when they drive by, and we're going to talk about that as well. So the message when you're going a little wider with an EDDM, at this point should be a just sold with your phone number big. If you did something great for them, put that on there in big print, right? So if you sold the home for $200,000, it only appraised at $190,000, but you still got that buyer to pay that extra $10,000 more, put that on there. You know, I got this home, I got the buyers to pay this seller $10,000 more than appraised value. That's a real value for a seller. Now, if the average sales time right now is around 41, 42 days in a city, but you sold this one in 17 days, say that, right? Put that on there. Whatever you did that was great, put that on there. But there's always going to be a feature and then a benefit. And this is where I think a lot of marketers have a disconnect, right? The feature is you sold the home 26 days faster than the market average. That's a feature. But what's the benefit? Well, the benefit is, Mr. Homeowner, because I sold this home 26 days faster, this seller got to pay one less mortgage payment, which saved him $1,650. That $1,650 I kept in that seller's pocket. Not only did I get him more than appraised value, but I got him another $1,650 on top of that because they didn't have a home to make a mortgage payment on. With the other realtors, they would have. And that's the benefit. So we always want to think, okay, what is the benefit? What does that really mean for that person? You know, sold the home above appraised value. Great. What does that mean? What does that mean to me? Nothing. This home appraised at $190,000. I still got the buyer to pay my seller $10,000 more, putting $10,000 more in their pocket than appraised value would have dictated. $10,000 is a real thing, right? And even at the question, what could you do with an extra $10,000? Gets them thinking about it. How exactly real that is. You know? Saves them $50 on their next mortgage payment. That's huge. You know, $10,000 is an extremely, extremely nice vacation for a very large family. Right? You know, feature, benefit. Feature, benefit. You can use call to actions, CTAs. I don't, and there are reasons for it. A call to action that many agents are using is, I'll sell your home in 90 days or I'll sell it for free. I'll sell your home in 29 days or I'll sell it for free. Right? I'll sell your home within $10,000 of asking price or I'll sell it for free. I'll sell your home or I'll sell it for free. I'll do this or I'll sell it for free. I'll do that or I'll sell it for free. Or I'll buy it. Or I'll do something else. Or I'll give you a gift card to Home Depot. Or I'll, you know, come shine your shoes. Or whatever it is. You know, da-da-da and then da-da-da. Right? Here's the problem with that notion. Right? Okay, that was an old Craig Proctor technique from about 25 years ago. He developed that technique directly, right? Back in the early 90s. He did a great job doing it. Canadian real estate agent, became the biggest real estate agent in North America very quickly with a lot of cool marketing techniques like that nobody had seen before. The problem is everybody's seen it now, right? I can name 5 realtors off the top of my head that are here and local, like in our little community, not this office, but our little community. I can name 5 realtors that have some sort of a call to action, such as, if I don't sell your home in 29 days, I'll sell it for free. Right? Here's the problem with that. Owners, when you get too far above 200,000, they know that there's fine print involved. And they look at that and they say, look at this gimmicky guy. I'm not in for the gimmick. I just want good service and I want a home sold at a good price. Trash. Right? There are 2 major teams in this area that use guaranteed sales techniques. We do not. Our sales prices are now almost 2.5 times those of the other 2 teams. If you want to run out and show and sell a bunch of $100,000 or $125,000 houses, guaranteed sales techniques work very, very well. That demographic of people, that demographic of income or education or wherever you want to put it, responds very well. You know, they're the same people that stay up all night watching infomercials and they buy the latest, you know, Ninja Blade or whatever. You know, they're the guys that buy the Vitamixes. They're the guys that, well, no, not the Vitamixes. I buy the Vitamixes. The NutriBullets. Yeah, I have the Vitamix. Why do I have Vitamix? Because I went through 3 NutriBullets and they burned out the motors on all 3 of them because they're crap. And their warranties are crap as well. Just fair warning. Don't buy a NutriBullet. You know. I mean, if you're thinking about going that route where you want to dice and mince and you want to do the smoothie thing, but you're not sure you want to commit to it, you know, for like $70, it's great. But then once the thing burns out and you're like, okay, I'm actually using it, just spend the $400 on a Vitamix. Seriously. I know people that have had theirs for like 8 years and they still run perfect. So much less money in the long run by buying a quality product up front, right? I digress. I apologize. So, moral of the story is, you know, you can do those guarantee sales and you will probably get a little bit of a bump and a boost by changing your marketing message in that way at first. But over a long period of time, the guy that gives consistently good service that other people review and recommend, those are the ones that are going to win at the higher dollar rate. Somebody name, I challenge somebody right now, name an agent that sells homes at over $500,000 that uses a guaranteed sale. You didn't sell over 500. Yeah. His average sales price is hovering about 117 right now. He does have several large properties most of those are referrals from family members, just to be quite honest, up front with you. He has an extremely large family, he does work his family very well, he does a good job with that, he actually does a very good job with that. But the reality is, his average sales price is about 117 right now, and that's not where I wanna live, personally. There's nothing wrong with it, you just have to go transactional. You have to sell a hell of a lot more homes to make the same amount of money. And they're harder deals because you're getting into a zone where the buyers and sellers don't have a ton of cash to bring to the table should something go wrong. But when you get over $500,000, the Demoras of the world, the Goodmans of the world, the Ken Posiks of the world, none of these guys use any sort of guaranteed sales message. All they do is they stand out there and say, hey, here's the deal. We just give great service. Here's our last 100 clients that are willing to vouch for us. That's it. You know, third-party advocacy, right? Google and Amazon did a masterful job of changing this world without even knowing it. And they didn't even know it, right? 10 years ago, real estate websites used to be junky. Used to be flashy. Used to have all these different calls to actions and all these different buttons, right? And if you Google Craig Proctor and you look at his website, that website called the Success website by Stephen Ray was the designer of that. No one uses that junk anymore because Google changed the entire landscape of how we even think about going and looking for anything, right? When you go to Google, what do you got? One bar, and that's it. When you go to Yahoo, what do you got? A whole bunch of junk. And it's hard to find the search bar. I could not tell you on Google where the search bar is. So, over time, because so many people use Google, and that's what they got used to, what did all the major portals do? Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com. They all changed their front-end interfaces to match Google, right? The clean look. We need to start doing that on all of our marketing messages as well. Get rid of all that junk. There are a lot of realtors that are still putting a lot of that junk. I'll sell your home in 29 days, or you get a half commission, or you opt for the 60-day program, and if that, I'll get rid of all my commission, and then if you do that and you buy a home from me, then I'll reduce my commission by $1,000, and then if you buy 2 homes from me, and then if you buy 2 homes and some Mary Kay, and then if you do that and you go into and buy the quick start stuff or whatever it is that the multi-level marketing thing is, if you do all of those wonderful things, then I'll actually give you $1,000 to sell your home. You know, no, forget all that noise. Forget all that. People want simplicity. You know, the average work week, the average American is back up to 51 hours, right? During the late 90s, early 2000s, the average American worked 37 hours. Done. The average full-time employed American worked 37 hours. You had all the time in the world. You had all the Saturdays and all the Sundays to go drive around and do great stuff with the kids and throw footballs and, you know, kiss babies and walk dogs and do all that stuff. Nowadays, you don't have that. At 51 hours a week, all you do when you get home is sit down tired. And that's the average American. So that's mother and father both working 51 hours each, which is part of the reason why there's a lot of strain right now in American families. In the meantime, according to the book Positioning, and then now the newer updates from it, the number of advertisements that we are inundated with on a daily basis has gone up by a factor of 8. It used to be, in the early 90s, we would see an average of, what was it, like 41 or 42 advertisements per day. Now we're well over 300. 300 times we see advertisements and we don't even know it. You know, people want simplicity because mentally we're burned out by the time we get a chance to think about anything. So at the end of the day, what do I want as a homeowner that you know, is working 60 hours a week, that has a home to sell at 400, I'm going to go buy a house at 800, what do I want? All I want to know is this guy's going to get the job done, and I want to know that 20 other people says he's a good realtor. That's it. And that's where the Amazon effect came in, right? Amazon changed the way people think about services and products, right? Because of their rating systems. You know, their star rating systems has become so prevalent throughout every facet of our life. I mean, how many times do you guys look for reviews on stuff? Every week. Every week. Yeah. No, that's the truth, you know? Like I'm looking at going to Lollapalooza in Chicago and I'm looking at hotels. You know, the first thing I did was I pulled up the ratings for the closest 5 hotels. I got rid of 2 of the hotels, done. They didn't even get the opportunity at my business. And I completely didn't even think about it. I saw one hotel was rated like 2.8 stars, one was rated 3 stars, one was rated like 3.1 stars, and the other 2 were like 4.5 stars. I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to those 2. I didn't read the reviews. Probably should have. But I looked at the star rating, I was like, oh, yep, those are the 2 I want. Because they're probably cleaner, that's probably that. No, that's probably not the case, but that's my perception, because that's what Amazon's done over the last 10, 12 years, right? That third-party advocacy is important. I always advise people putting that message on the postcard as well, something direct from the seller. Talking about their experience, right? If you want to take that, what's that?
What if you don't have much experience? You don't have.
You ever worked a job before?
Yes.
Something where you had customers,
Yes.
call them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have letters from them, and
Yep.
so, but
And-
that's
And
not
take
real
it
estate.
down, it doesn't matter, take it down to snippets that don't talk about the other business, but don't necessarily talk about real estate.
Just talk about your service.
Yeah. And I did that when I got into real estate, I was bartending. So I had clients, or not clients, but customers, write about how good the service was, how fast the service was, things like that. Could have been about anything. I could have been a bartender, could have been a real estate agent, could have been a shoe salesman. You know, the review could have applied to any job.
Mhm.
As long as it applied to me, I was happy. Because all I wanted to do was get through to the consumer that I was now advertising to, that I had fast service, I had great service, I was always personable, I always had a smile, I was always upbeat. That's really all I wanted. Right? They didn't know it was about bartending. That's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. In those letters, you can probably pick apart sentences
Mhm.
or a string of 3 or 4 sentences that talk about your service, and talk about your speed of service, and talk about how diligent you are working with your customer to get them the best deal or the best this or the best that. Take that and leave out the fact that it was later on or earlier on in the paragraph that was for a different business entirely. And that's the other side of it, is you don't want to put too much on the postcard. Like, you don't want like a 5-paragraph essay or like an entire letter. Just 3 or 4 sentences about the service. We signed with Mike Perna after a disappointing experience with another realtor. He returned our calls very quickly. He got the home sold in 60 days, where the other agent couldn't do it in 6 months. Done. That's a good message. But a 2-page message hurts more than helps, because people won't read it. How many people read emails past the first 3 sentences? Nobody. Nobody does. And part of that's also because of this. As things get smaller, nobody wants to read an entire book on their phone. Which is something we'll talk about. When you are doing emailing or texting or anything else, keep everything down to 4 sentences or less. Because any more than that, it generally does not get read. Does that make sense? No. That's it. The best email message you can send to a whole slew of past buyer leads, if you just load them all up into one email, is, hey, how's the home search going? That's it. And some of them will actually start replying back, oh, we were just thinking about calling you. No, they weren't, but, I'm in front of you, and you can't think of anybody else right now, so that'll work. That's fine. I'm not gonna be disillusioned to think that you were thinking of me, but it's fine, because I'm in front of you right now. That's cool. But if I go into like a 3-paragraph essay about, hey, how's the home search going? By the way, here's a whole bunch of information on home inspections and why they're important. They're gonna like open it up and just literally close it back and just delete it. I know, because I did that. Right? My mother sent me these long freaking email messages, and then I literally put it into a folder labeled Mom that I intend to read at some point in my future, and I have hundreds of these things that I've never read. And I text my mom and I say, what was that email really about? And then she texts me like 2 lines. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, dinner, Sunday. Yeah, I gotta bring dessert. Got it. Okay. My mother. And that's what happens when you're retired. You have all day to like perfect what should be 2 questions. Yep. What time are you gonna come over for dinner? Can you handle dessert? I mean, that's it.
And you're a high.
That's why I usually, when I ask questions, they're usually yes or no questions, because I don't want to deal with the answers. And I also don't want to ask questions I don't already know the answers to. Something else we'll talk about. So the message on these cards should be something simple. Evidence of success. Selling something. Use other agents' inventory if you don't have any. We got a whole ton of agents in this office that you can advertise the properties of. You just got to get permission first, right? So if you're going after a specific neighborhood, Demora sold a home in the neighborhood 6 months ago, great, go ask Jimmy. You know, same thing with myself or Z or anybody, most of us just don't care. We're like, whatever. Help an agent out, I'm all for it, right? You know, this is Keller Williams, it's not other places. Yeah, where they would not do that. Evidence of success. Close a lot of times, close enough. All right. In Grandmont Sub, in Detroit, there's a street called Stahalem. Okay? Familiar with that street?
A few blocks away.
Yeah. Which is not too far away from where I went to high school. Does anybody have any flipping clue how long Stahalem is?
Yes. It goes
Yeah.
all the way, what's it, 8 Mile?
It goes from 8 Mile down to Dearborn and everywhere in between. I mean, the road is like 14 miles long. And that's why people say, you know, well, what block is Stahalem? Well, 10,000 block. Well, 14,000 block. You know, because they're trying to get a fix on where you are, right? So, if you're looking to break into Grandmont Sub, and you sold one on Stahalem, but you sold one down near Mexican Town or something like that, right? Probably shouldn't say that on the camera. Crop that, please. I love social media. You know, use Stahalem, but just leave the numbers off. Who cares that it was a 7,000 block of Stahalem and not the 13,000 block of Stahalem? I'm guessing 13,000 block is Grandmont because that probably sounds about right. Maybe 12,000. 14,000. Okay, well, I was close. Okay, I was close. Been a while since I sold Detroit, but you know, I was close. But if you're looking to break into something like that, you can use those different streets, even though it's not directly in the neighborhood. And a lot of those homes look very similar, whether it's 1 mile up, 1 mile down, or in the middle. Right? You know, same thing with like a Farmington Hills or a Livonia. I mean, how many 3-bedroom brick ranches are there in Livonia? I mean, seriously, it's like 3/4 of Livonia is a 3-bedroom brick ranch. You know, people call me up, oh, I live over at Hick Street. Oh, you must be in a 3-bedroom brick ranch. How'd you know? Yeah. I'm either right or I'm wrong, and like 7 out of 10 times, I've got a 7 in 10 chance of being right with a 3-bedroom brick ranch in Livonia. You know? No, I'm not. Oh, okay, well, you must be in a tri-level. Oh, how do you know? Yeah. Well, because that's the other kind of house there is in Livonia, pretty much. Not to be negative or anything, but it's just what was built there. You know, and people will see that you sold the home, and that's good enough, okay? Does that make sense? Yeah. So going wide, you have to make the message more general. You can increase the number of homes, and using a program like an EDDM, you can punch through and increase the number of homes cost effectively. Going deep.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Does this model still work for condos and?
Absolutely. Yep. John DeMora, Timmy's older brother, he was known as the condo seller. Because when he got into the business, there were a couple other guys in the business that had been in the business as big farmers for a couple of years at that point, but nobody really had gone after condos. So John, when he got in the early mid-90s, or late 80s, or 20s, or whatever it was that he got in, he directly went after and farmed specifically condos, gained a huge foothold on the condos, and then branched out into homes after that. And then ended up leaving a lot of the condo complexes behind over time. Right? But he went condos first, and then everything else, because the condos were what he could compete at, because there was nobody in there. Right? It's where he could soak up market share. And condos sold just as well as houses back there, and they still sell pretty much just as well as houses right now, depending on the area. So going deep. Does anyone know the best example of this in this area? And they're with our office too. Any guesses? Yep. Lita Kekich. All right. Brandon and Lita Kekich, or Lita and Brandon Kekich, really. I like them both. They're like family to me. Now, Lita Kekich and Brandon Kekich, they were, I want to say it was in the Woodhaven area, and I believe that to be right. I don't want to be quoted on that. He actually went to school with 2 of my cousins, went to high school, which I didn't know until recently, but they moved up into the Northville area for a couple of different reasons. One of it is, you know, Brandon was having a family, he wanted his kids to go to a better school district than what there was in that area at that time. You know, and part of it was, if you're gonna sell a thing, sell the biggest darn thing you can, and Northville had the biggest darn thing that could be sold at that moment in time, right, when they moved up in the late 90s. Now, so they moved into a place called Country Club Village, which is located at 6th and Haggerty Road, okay? She moved into a condo there, Lita did. Eventually Brandon came to move into a condo there as well, which they're both still there. They're both there right now, right? They have an 80% plus sales rate in that complex. Okay? Part of it is they live there. Part of it is she's on the board and has been on the board for darn near forever. So she knows a whole bunch of the owners that way. She literally walks and talks to everybody, shakes their hands, kisses the babies, does it consistently. They do mail every time they sell something. And seeing as they're selling 20 condos a year, they're getting like 20 mailers a year. She writes a lot of the stuff for the newsletter, so her name's in there. They open house everything, even if they don't need to. So you see a whole bunch of open house signs there. So she is saturating that market on an extremely deep level, and it takes a lot of time. But look at the average sales prices in Country Club Village right now, which is hovering around 360, 370. So if you're getting 20 sales a year, that's a $7 million a year business. You're making 200 grand a year gross commission. That ain't bad. It's not a bad life in one neighborhood. And because of it, she's getting some ancillary business too. You know, people in the colonies, the commons, the lakes, those couple of neighborhoods right around there are calling her and saying, hey, I want a condo in Country Club Village in CCV. You know, you are selling 80%, so you know what's coming up on the market before it comes up. I'll tell you what, if you can keep me in mind when you get something before you put it on the market, I'll let you sell my house over here too that's worth $400,000. So there's another couple million that's coming in that way, right? And that's not exactly how the conversation goes, but let's be real, that's really how the conversation goes. You know? People are trying to trade those services now because the market's tight. You know, when she got in there, John DeMora, John D, JD, had about a 60% market share, right? She literally just chased him out over the course of 3 years. Chased him out. Part of it was she lived there. John never lived there. John never lived in Country Club. He was the condo guy at the time. And he was just transitioning into more neighborhoods and houses. Actually, he had already been pretty deep in the transition into going into neighborhoods as well. And he was going more wide than deep. So she killed him on time. She put time into the association being on the board. She put time into writing articles, which the association at their cost put into their newsletter and sent out. She put time and energy and effort into this thing and made it work, right? You can win heavy on a deep level if you're willing to put the time in, okay? But it's also got to be a neighborhood that's worth putting the time in. You have to do the same analysis on the neighborhood up front. You want to make sure there's a certain turnover rate and a certain percentage that are not, or there are no other agents that are selling a certain percentage in there, because if there is, and you start putting a year and a half of your invested time and energy and effort into there just to find out there's another agent that's already selling at a high level that you have to displace. It took her 3 years to displace John. If she had picked a different condo complex, it only would have taken her a year. That was the one thing that I would pick apart on her strategy. If there isn't it, because it did work. It just took 3 times as long and 3 times the effort. Right? Nowadays, you have Lita and Brandon Kagich accounting for about 80% of the sales there. You have Marilyn Snyder accounting for about 10 to 12% of the sales there. And then you have everybody else accounting for 8 to 10%. This is overpowered. This is how you break that 25 to 35% barrier, where you actually break through family. There are people there that have family members that are realtors and very good ones, and they will not use them in Country Club Village. They'll use Lita because they know Lita is the one that sells 8 out of 10. Well, you know, it's Lita. She has these things sold before they even go on the market. Well, it's Lita. She lives here, so she wants to get the most for it because it affects her home value too. Well, it's Lita. She's on the board. She knows these condos better than anybody else. You know, I'm sorry, Mom, I'm not going to use you as a realtor because I have to use this lady. That happens. Ask her. She'll tell you. Well, she's, what's the word I'm looking for? Not bashful. Modest. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. She's modest, so she probably won't actually come up directly and say it. But that does happen. And with good reason. I mean, if I was a real estate agent and I was living here, I'd probably call her because she probably has 5 buyers lined up for my condo that I don't even know about yet. And she's a great agent, but that's beside the point. You know, by going deep into this, you can gain market share quickly. Now, how do you codify that into a plan without actually moving into a neighborhood? There's a way to do this. right? First, you know, you go into a neighborhood and you get the one sale or the one listing, right? As soon as you get a listing, and by doing that, you're gonna mail it, possibly do a door knock, possibly call through it, whatever it takes to get that one sale. I tried this on a neighborhood and it actually worked. I tried this on a neighborhood in Farmington Hills where I had never, not never, but I had never sold a seller's home and I only sold buyer's homes there, and I hadn't sold anything in over 5 years. So I was non-existent in the neighborhood, right? There was another realtor living in the neighborhood. She was doing about 25-ish% of the business, and I just wanted to see how this theory would work. So I just tried it, but it did work. So I got one home there, right? Now, the first thing I did was, I did a three-pronged open house. Okay, and the three prongs were, the Thursday before the open house, I door knocked 125 of the neighbors and personally invited them to the open house. That is an easy script. Hey guys, Mike Perna with Keller Williams. I was just hired to sell your neighbor's home, John and Nancy. John's got a job transfer out to Colorado. We're very excited for him and his family, and we're excited to be a part of the move. Now, as you know, John and Nancy hired us to get them the most money in the shortest amount of time. As you may not know, according to the National Association of Realtors, about 10% of people move into a neighborhood because they already know somebody there. So what I know is if I talk to 100 of the neighbors, I'm going to come up with 10 buyers and hopefully be able to push the price up because of all the interest, which will help John and Nancy because they'll give an extra couple of bucks for their next move. It'll also help you guys too because that'll increase the value of the sales prices of the homes in the neighborhood. Who do you know that I should know that mentioned that they were thinking about looking in your neighborhood? And they'll say nobody. They always do. They say, that's okay. I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you these 2 flyers. If you could do me a favor, we're having an open house on Sunday. If you think of anybody, if anybody at work mentioned it, anybody on the PTA mentioned it, anybody at any of the soccer clubs that your kids go to mention it over the next couple of days, you know, please feel free to give them one and let them know the open house is coming in on Sunday. It's a fantastic home, as you can see here. They have redone kitchen or whatever it is that they have. And also, if you want to, if you got a couple extra minutes on Saturday, why don't you pop on over? You know, come chit chat. You know, we'll have coffee, cookies, some refreshments, whatever. And I'll also have a copy of everything that's sold in the neighborhood over the last 6 months, which I know a lot of people like to have. That reminds me, a couple of your neighbors have asked me to put together a sales report, you know, once a month or so, just on everything that's sold in that month, so they don't have to go to Zillow and look it up. You know, would that be, I'm already putting it together for a bunch of your neighbors, would that be something of interest to you? Well, yes, it would. Fantastic. What's your email address so I can make sure you get it? Oh, and what's a good number to get you on? Because I just want to follow up to make sure that you did actually receive that. You know, email nowadays, technology. Yeah. And then the last step of that process is, oh, before I go, hey, if you guys were to move, when would that be? Well, kids are in high school until June of next year. So Mike, at least 13, 14 months, but really probably 2 years. Fantastic. Well, when we get a little closer to that 2-year mark, it's okay to follow up with you. Sure, because they believe that I'll never do it. Then you put it in the calendar, 18 months from now, call this dude. Congratulate him on the kids graduating from college and ask him when he's going to put my for sale sign in his ground. Put him on the market snapshot or whatever program you want for sales. You can use Realcom, right, to make sure they're getting those sales. So if you send them 12 postcards per year, now you're sending them 12 emails per year. So now you're up to 24 touches. Right?
Question. I held an open house for you last year, and I used your script. And this guy, he said, well, I don't want the value of my home to go up because I don't want to sell my home, and the taxes will go up. So,
Yeah.
So what would you?
Well, Mr. Seller, I can completely appreciate that. I'm in the same boat because I'm not going to be selling my home in the next probably 5 or 6 years either. But at the end of the day, I have a fiduciary responsibility to your neighbor to get every damn penny I can. And I intend to do exactly that. They didn't hire me to make your value go down. They hired me to get everything I can for that house and do it as stress-free as possible, and I intend to do just that. And then a year down the road when that seller when they have a job change, a promotion, they retire early, onset arthritis, and they can't handle the cold weather anymore, they're gonna remember that conversation. And that will happen. Or another family member or friend. They know, well, shoot, that guy's screwing me because of the taxes, but he's good. Use this guy. You know? That'll happen.
Thank you.
You betcha. That's a great question. That's number one. Number two is call everyone in the neighborhood and leave them voicemails. Because out of those 125 people, you're really only gonna get a hold of like 10. That's the reality of it. Right? And number three, and it's the same thing, invite them to the open house. It's basically the same script, but when you're leaving voicemails, it's without that, you know, hey, what's the sales data? Third one is using at least 30 plus open house signs. See, a lot of realtors that use 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 open house signs, right? If you pass by one and you're not sure where the house is, you gotta turn around and drive back and see which way the arrow was, because there's not gonna be another one. You know? 30 plus open house signs. I want the neighbors to see my name 10 times before they get out of their own neighborhood. Because it looks like we're doing a lot more business than we actually are, right? If the home doesn't sell that weekend, do it again. Repeat it. If the home doesn't sell that weekend, do a price reduction, and then do it again, right? And now, you're getting more neighbors that you haven't talked to, you're calling and leaving more voicemails, and they're seeing your signs 30 times, 3 weeks in a row. All of a sudden, you're the biggest realtor in that neighborhood, right? In Meadowbrook Estates, here in Farmington Hills, I did that. 5 years, 0 sales. By the end of that year, I had 17 of 36 sales. Average sales price in the neighborhood is about 260, 270. That's not bad. No, that's actually $5 million in business, right? Definitely not bad. And then the third thing, after it sells, so call and thank the neighbors. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Neighbor, this is Mike Perna with Keller Williams. I just want to give you a quick call and thank you. Thank you. There were a lot of people that came through our open house. Some of them said that the neighbors had referred them over, but we don't want to pry. So I don't know which neighbor it was that referred them over. If you were the person that helped John and Susie out, would get to Colorado. No, I just wanted to extend my thanks. And if you weren't, no, that's okay too. No. That gives me another reason to talk to them and try to, you know, build rapport, build relationship, that kind of thing, right? Now with these three, and when I door knock, I also leave the flyers in the door if they're not home. So they're gonna see me here, see me here, see me here, right? So that's 3 more touches.
What's the second?
Call. You have 125 door knocks, call the neighborhood, and 30 open house signs. This one is go ahead and call them again once the property is sold. Call the entire neighborhood again, right? So that's another touch. If there's only one open house, right? This will lead to another listing, almost 100% of the time. Every time I've done it, I've always gotten another listing from it, which is pretty cool. When you get another listing from it, you repeat the process. And then you will be the biggest realtor in that neighborhood, I promise. Because no one will have gone that big and that deep with those houses, ever. And it will leave a lasting impression on those homeowners, that you are the one. Same thing here. You know, slightly different tactic. She lived there. She bought a home to get into the neighborhood. Here, I'm not buying a home, but I am putting in a lot of time, energy, and effort. So that's another 1, 2, 3, 4 touches. Right? $32 touches. To find a way to make it 33, and now you got the Keller Williams 33 touch. Done. Done. Right? That's how you do it. At a high level to go very deep into a neighborhood. And this works. Questions on it? The other bonus of this is you're trading your time for the dollars. You know, going the way that I do it on the wide, I'm literally just putting dollars into the problem. throwing money at it. We are doing some open houses, sure. We're doing them at some of these levels, sure. Right? But the reality is, I'm sending out all those repetitive postcards, so I'm choosing to put money into the problem instead of time. Because I don't want to go out and door knocking, I don't want to do open houses personally, and I don't want to do all those wonderful things right now, at this stage personally, because I'm trying to manage a whole team, and try not to actually sell actively, because through everybody else on my team, I will achieve greater success. Right? That's the stage that I'm at right now. But I can say this, if the $6,000 nut stay in front of everybody is scary, this is a way to defray that and get into real sales in the neighborhood in 4 months or less. Because door knocking 125 houses is time. Calling 125 people is time. Putting out 30 open house signs and picking them back up again is time. You know? There's a little bit of money here because you're printing off some flyers. There's a little bit of upfront money here because you're buying some signs, but you use the signs again. Does that make sense? That's the greatest thing about this. If I knew about this when I got into real estate, when I first wanted to start farming 10 years ago and then didn't, because I frankly couldn't afford it, you'd be looking at a very different person right now. Instead of a person, you know, doing what I do right now, I'd probably doing double or double and a half what I do right now, because I'd be 5 years faster, 5 years more advanced into my sales cycle. Because at that time, these theories did not exist. Well, they did, but nobody was really thinking of them at a high level. The only way that we knew how to farm was to send a piece of mail. And if you wanted to get even bigger with it, well, send more mail. And that was it. It was all about the checkbook. It wasn't about putting in the timing and building personal relationships. That make sense? Now, this is good. This will get you into a neighborhood fast with low dollar output. High time output, but low dollar output. But if it's a neighborhood you're serious about, and you did the research up front, and you know 5, 6, 7, 8% of those homes are going to sell this upcoming year, and you know no other realtor is actively going after them, and you know the sales prices are enough to cause you to get out of bed in the morning, because those commissions are decent, then it's worth putting that kind of energy and effort into. Right? Now, last thing I want to talk about real quickly. Okay, more recently, in the last couple of years, there have been a couple of programs like Smart Zip or Listing Grabber that have come out, right? They are demographic, truly demographic farming models, okay, or farming companies, right? So Smart Zip says, okay, based on our algorithm, and this is where you go, not just geographically, but you go demographically. Based on our model, we're identifying that out of every 1,000 homes, these 200 people are most likely to sell this year, based on their age range, their income range, their kids' age range, based on their likes, their dislikes, whatever it is. They use a whole set of algorithms, right? So they say, okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to pay for our program. We're going to put out postcards on your behalf, but we're not going to mail all 1,000 homes in that area. We're just going to mail the top 200 that we think are most likely to sell, right? There are two main programs for that right now. One's called Smart Zip, one's called Listing Grabber. Here's my issue with that program. Its postcards are upwards of 70 cents a piece for the mail, because you're really paying for that data, the data mining, right? I think there's nothing wrong with data mining. I think data mining is the future of the business. I think doing it with postcards is not the future of the business. I'll talk about why I think something else is the future in a second. But my issue with that is twofold. One, I did try Smart Zip for a year, and I found that of, let's call it 100 homes that sold, their 20% did account for 30% of the sales. So they were right a little more than not, but not enough, because the other 70 homes that sold were not part of that 200, or that's 20%. So it's like, but dude, okay, your algorithm is picking up a little bit, but not 70 cents to 26 cents with EDDM. Definitely not. It's not a 3-to-1 return. It's a 15% return, right? It's got to be a 3-to-1 return for it to make sense, versus the postage. Which brings me to my next point. Literally, I could either choose to do a smart zip or a listing grabber program, or I could just mail all the homes. And the cost is the same. So I'll just mail everybody. And that way, I don't need the data to tell me who's gonna sell and who's not gonna sell. I'm just gonna hit them all. Somebody's gonna sell. You know? So watch out for some of those programs like that, right? Data mining, I think, works a little better on Facebook. The new Facebook advertising methods, and Facebook is also a good backbone to farming. If you go geographic down to the zip code with your ads on Facebook, you can get homeowners on Facebook that are in those zip codes that see your ads come up for $100 or $200 a month. It might be worth the ad spend just to, again, get another medium that you're in front of them. So now they're hearing your voice on the phone, they're seeing you at their front door, they're seeing the postcards, they're seeing the open house signs, and they're seeing you on Facebook. You know, variable media is the way you get the highest amount of turnover consumers back to you, right? Lita did basically the same thing. She didn't just send postcards. She joined the board. She wrote articles. She door knocked. She stopped and said hi to the neighbors when they were out pruning the hedges. Variable message, variable marketing, right? You know, it wasn't just mail. It was mail and talk to and articles and. You know, that's where your biggest impacts always come in, when you vary the medium for the message. And Facebook does just that. Now, going back to the data mining, you can data mine now through Facebook. Such things as, I want people that bought their homes between 1999 and 2004 because they're not underwater and they've been there over 10 years and they're most likely to move, because I also want them in this age range where their kids are going off to college. You can get that specific with the Facebook advertising right now. And this is new stuff. This is all stuff that has been refined and is now coming out between the last 6 months and going another 6 months into the future. Because Zuckerberg is now putting out ways of targeting groups more so than only zip code, only male, female, and only age. Which is what it was before. A year ago and backwards, that's all you could do with Facebook. Now you can get into much more targeted demographics, and you will be able to continue to get into more targeted demographics as time goes on. Because what he's finding is the more targeted it is, the more valuable it is for that marketer, which means he can charge more per click. And you're reducing the frequency of marketing messages per person. Because if you are an 18-year-old girl, I am not going to market sell your home. But the makeup lady will market buy some makeup. But if you're a 40-year-old guy and an 18-year-old girl, for years you'd have to get the same message for the girl to get the makeup and the guy to get to sell your home, right? Now you can separate them, and with fewer marketing messages in the Facebook medium, that's also more impactful, the messages, right? You know, same kind of theory as like the whole like speak softly. You know, the louder you say something, the less people actually hear it. You know what I mean? Yeah, people that jump up and down and rant and rave and scream and shout are the people you don't listen to. But people who are thoughtful, poised, and speak in a little bit of a hushed voice are the people you lean in to hear more. You know, marketing is the same way. You know, and Facebook kind of came to that acknowledgement that by having marketers literally just blast everything to everyone every time, they were devaluing their service. But by being more specific with it, now instead of seeing 10 ads in your newsfeed, you're only seeing 5. But those 5 cost those marketers 3 times as much as those 10. Because the messages are so much more specific, they can charge so much more for them. So who really wins? Facebook. And the Googles and all that, right? Yeah. But anyway, that is not a bad backbone. It's newer. It's something I'm playing with. I haven't really done at a high level. I don't know anyone that's really backbone their farming at a high level with Facebook, besides just doing open house ads and boosted posts just to get more traffic into either the open house or onto their website. And I don't really know what the effect of that would be on farming itself, because there's no real direct effect, you know, between a boosted post for an open house and how do you guarantee the neighbors saw that? Because my goal with an open house is to get the next listing, not find a buyer. Always. Buyers are byproducts, buyers are bonus, buyers are, hey, that's awesome, if it happens, great, if it doesn't, I don't care. I'm looking to try to identify the next seller by doing all of this, always. You know what I mean? That's what I'm looking for. All right. Questions on Perna?
What kind of posts would you do on Facebook?
Home evaluation, usually, yep. And the more specific, the better to that neighborhood. And when you're going deep into a neighborhood, change your postcard message to make sure you have the neighborhood name on it, somewhere. Go by a dummy URL, mycountryclubvillagehomevalue.com, something. Something to get you as specific as possible into that neighborhood so you look like the neighborhood expert. Same thing with the Facebook advertising. I would, well, a little bit differently. I would go for the home evaluation. Free complimentary home evaluation. Find out what your home is worth, click here. Get a free list of homes, click here. Get a free list of foreclosures, click here. Something like that. Something that's going to cause somebody to click who's on a mobile phone. Facebook is over 60% of the time used mobile. Websites are on approach to 50%. Mine is over. Last 6 months running, I've been 51% mobile users on my own website. So everything I do is now very short, very paraphrased. I'm gearing towards people with phones with that size of a screen, not that size of a screen. I'm putting a lot of my content at the back of the page, bottom of the page, not the top of the page. What do buyers want to see, guys? They want to see homes. So put the homes at the top, put the content at the bottom. That gets you ranked. The article about buying foreclosures will get that page ranked. But nobody wants to read the article. They just want the list of foreclosures. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So put the call to action at the top. Put the article that causes you to rank higher in Google at the bottom. Right? Yeah. But everybody wants to know what their home is worth, and and all the buyers want to find homes. That's it. That's really all they want. All the other calls to action, get a list of the 10 things to avoid on home inspections when selling your home. The 5 staging tips for everybody should know. No, people like to know that stuff, but nowadays at 50 plus work hours a week, they expect their realtor to know that stuff. 10 years ago, no one really cared about staging that much. Nowadays, it's one of our biggest calls to action. And part of that's HGTV and all that influence, and that's another influence that's been coming on the upswing for the last 10 years. As these shows keep on getting out there, they keep talking about staging and flipping and doing this and flipping out this kitchen and doing wonderful, epic, awesome. You're changing the American public's mind again. But what I do see is they don't really care to know about the staging. They care that I know about the staging. Because they don't want to take the time to watch the shows and read the articles and find out what the 5 things are. They just want to make sure I know the 5 things.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and there are no 5 things because nobody really cares about 5 things. 5 things is just a snazzy way to get people to click on a link. Where are the 10 best restaurants in Metro Detroit? Where are the 5 best restaurants in Northville? Where are the 3 top things to remember when, trying to avoid contracting the Ebola virus? I don't know, whatever. The top 10 lists are like the hot thing. Top 5 lists are becoming the hot thing too. Why? Because it's shorter than 10. I mean, really, this is the society we're going into, guys. This is the McDonald's society. Between that and the phones and all the messaging and, not messaging, but the media messages and the advertisements and everything else that we're inundating our generations with, our kids with, it's no wonder our attention spans have gone to shit. When it's flashy object, flashy object, flashy object. How can you paraphrase this? How can you condense this? How can you make this 3-page report into 1 page? How can you make that 1-page report into a paragraph? It's like the king that wanted to know everything. He hired a whole bunch of writers to say, hey, I want to know everything there is to know in human knowledge. So they brought him 50,000 books. All right, 10 years later. I forgot. It's an old Greek story. He said, no, that's way too much. 10 years, my life isn't going to be that long that I can read all this stuff anymore. Go back and do it again. Try to condense it into the stuff I need to know the most. So they brought him 100 books. Couldn't read that. Bring me 1 book. By the time the guy got there, the king died. People just want to know what they need to know. a lot of them don't even want to know that. They want to make sure that the person that they know knows what they need to know, so they don't have to know that. Now, the world is changing again. Now, the world is changing again to a bunch of specialists, a bunch of professionals, but in a different way than before. You know? But it's also changing in another light too. I mean, 25 years ago, when something was wrong, you went to the doctor told you what was wrong, wrote you a prescription, you went home. That was it. Do you ever Google what was wrong with you? No. 25 years ago, there wasn't even the Google to be Googled. You know, nowadays, what do people do? They pull out their phones, they start looking at their symptoms, they get all these crazy ideas in their head, they go to the doctor, they're like, no, this doctor's wrong, I'm going to this other doctor. What's the rating of that doctor? Oh, that doctor's a 3-star rating. I'm going to get that doctor. Okay, good. So now they go to 3 different doctors to get what they want to hear. And then they go to 2 different pharmacists because the pharmacist is all contradicting. Like, wait, why are you taking this thing as if you have like blood swelling in the foot when all you have is a cold? That makes no sense. Go back to your doctor. You know, because you can find if you go to enough doctors, they will tell you what you want to hear, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then we're teaching our children, which can be good or can be bad depending on the studies you read, to do the same thing to doctors. You know, when we were kids, would we ever have questioned our doctor? Or even ask questions? No, you sat there flipping terrified. You just want to go home and play with the toys and Nintendos and stuff like that, right? That's what we did. Now, kids are actually like, I have a question. I have a question. Are you sure? Because I have an iPod, and even though it's not a phone and not online all the time, you have Wi-Fi, and I'm looking it up right now, and my symptom says this. So are you sure? I know I'm only 6, but I've got like a whole page on this. Like, this is what's going on nowadays. But now it's starting to all go backwards again. You know, as long as I know in my bones my accountant is the best, I will not check his work. And I believe that my accountant is getting me the best deal possible, that he's finding every write-off he can. So honestly, I don't check his work that thoroughly. I don't. I email my stuff, he emails me a thing to print off and sign, I print it, sign it, scan it, email it back to him, done. Or my taxes. Because he is the professional and I trust him. That's where we're going. We will become and real estate's gonna go the same way, where we're gonna be a land of trusted professionals or questioned, not mets. People that know us and trust us will just use us blindly. People that don't know us will not trust us, and then the reviews will have to be proven very good for them to even consider us. Right? It all connects together, guys. It all connects together. When you're farming and you start seeing you start getting these past clients, make sure they go on Zillow and give you a good review. Because in your farms, people that don't know you that are getting your postcard, they will look you up on Zillow. They will. That'll happen. Any questions? Anything I'm missing? Yeah. Well, let me know. Let me know any questions. Next time I'll use this book. I'm sure there's good stuff in here too.
I have a question.
Yes.
And it's not about farming, it's actually about FSBOs and buyers.
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle a buyer who you know, had agency and everything with, and then they find a FSBO and they try and hash out the deal themselves? Do you just let them go?
They already contacted the FSBO?
Mm-hmm.
There was no agency contract?
Who?
Between you and the buyer?
No, we do.
If they already found the FSBO and they're already working on it, I would just let it go.
Okay.
And just go after the next one.
Okay.
But don't forget to educate the buyers. You know, let them know up front, hey, you know, thank you for working with me, I really appreciate it. One thing I do want to talk about is for sale by owners. But for sale by owners, you know, they're looking to get the best deal possible, but let's be real, you know, they will pay a 3% commission because at least they're saving something.
Mm-hmm.
And they're happy to because now they've got a real estate agent involved. So like, you know, because they'll pay the 3% instead of paying 6%. You know, and that guy's gonna carry it to closing because he wants to make sure he gets his 3. The buyer wants to make sure they get the house. And I'm still only paying 3, not 6, which is cool. You know, so Mr. Buyer, when you see that for sale by owner, let me know and I'll contact them and take you through it and make sure that they're willing to pay the commission. On the other side of the fence, and this is true, I think only one time in my entire career have I had a for sale by owner say no. And the only reason why they said no is because they couldn't. They were that tight to the bone, and they never ended up selling the house. because they were just too tight. They owed too much on the house, and they needed to get exactly that out of it, and there was just no way. They were like 20 grand above market value, and there was just like no way they could get that. And then the home ended up going into foreclosure because the market was shifting down at the time. But, you know, for the most part, for sale by owners will pay the commission because they're just happy to know that, okay, I've got somebody here that's gonna deal with this whole process for me and I don't have to do anything. You know? No, they're pretty happy about that for the most part. But you gotta educate the buyer up front to say, when you see a for sale by owner, call me, and I'll make sure to get in touch with them. And also, I wanna see how realistic they are, how many offers they've had, how many showings they've had, what kind of level of interest. I wanna gauge all those things first before we can walk in the door, so I know what kind of strength and position we have negotiating wise. Which sounds really good, and it is true, because I do chat them up, or at least I used to. When I did it a lot, I used to chat them up. Oh yeah, so how many showings have you guys had? Has it been pretty busy lately? Well, and that'll, you know, how long have you been out there? 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, no offers? Had to pack up the kids a whole bunch of times and got Jack. Getting all the buyers that none of the agents want because they can't get pre-approved, no, yeah, okay. Getting a little desperate because you're sitting here and you gotta be in Colorado? Yeah, a little bit of that? Yeah. Yeah. And it's true. You know, for sale by owner sounds like a great idea on the surface, but the reason why the majority of people go the other way is because they do get jerked around by the buyers that can't get a mortgage.
Right.
You know? And that's okay. Let them jerk them around. It'll make them that much more demoralized when they get to me. That should not go on YouTube. No, I'm kidding. I wish everyone the most success in their for sale by owner pursuits. Oh my gosh, I can't reach that. I think it's just the red one on the back. Thank you. Thank you.